All right, so good afternoon. I'm Chef Queen, Deborah Queen. I'm a member of the Rockville-Tolland Seventh-day Adventist Church. I've been a gardener pretty much all of my life, and I'm here today presenting with my co-presenter here, Jerry Travers. We both live in Meriden, and I'm a small plot, high-yield gardener, and Jerry has a lot of land. So he's like the real, he's the real deal. And I'm like trying my best to keep up. But he does volume where I do maybe a little more intricate stuff. Right, Jerry? So if you came to my house, you'd see I have 7 raised bed gardens. And I grow everything. The garlic is already in the bed, sleeping for the winter. And onions, all the stuff that we use all year long. We need to plant and grow our own because it just doesn't make sense. I harvested this year like 30 pounds of potatoes. Took very little effort to do it. Also, sweet potatoes, never grown before in my life. But you know what? Someone gave me some slips and I said, oh, let me try it. I've got so many sweet potatoes. And I love the principles in the Bible because it teaches you to give 1/10 of everything that you grow. I believe that you should even give, when you can, 1/10 of everything that you have. So that means you bake a loaf of bread, you bake one for your neighbor or your friend or soup or whatever. So anyways, we don't want to get off topic here. But this is a good one. And this one here is also really good. Now, these books you can order on Amazon or anywhere, you can go to a bookstore or whatever. But this is a good one, Organic Vegetable Gardener. And then that small one is on herbs. So when I started out, the one way at the end with the blue writing, when I first started out in the 70s, I did mostly herbs and lettuces. 2 of the simplest, easiest things to grow in the world. And I've learned so much since then about companion planting, things that go together, grow together. You know how sometimes you don't get along with your neighbor or something? God forbid. Anyways, that's the same way in the plant kingdom. They don't like to be near certain things because, it's all about protecting the seed, right? So today that's what we're here for. Is learning how to grow the food and gather your own seed. And it's very simple process, but it's something that we need to address, especially now that, the days that we're living in. So with that said, I would like to offer a quick word of prayer, and then we'll get into the meat of our subject. Dear God in heaven, thank you for all the flowers and all the plants and all the vegetables and all the trees and all the green herbs that you put on this earth for us. Thank you for teaching us how to use them and for using us in how to teach them. And I pray that your Holy Spirit be with each and every one here today. Amen. Bless our program and future programs that we offer at our church in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
So we've set this up. So it's kind of alphabetical. Next time we may do it in families. So the brassicas are all, of course, the broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, all those guys, okay? And then, so we kind of set it up alphabetically. So you're going to start with arugula and go all the way around the table to over there's watermelon. And, you've got your tomatoes and all the other stuff in there. These are some sun gold tomatoes that I didn't get to at the end of the season. So I just let them dry naturally. And this is an experiment. So this year I'll be throwing a few of them in the garden, see how they do. But these sun gold, right, Jerry, they're just like eating candy, basically. It's so sweet and nice, And so we've got all the greens. In here's a basket with herbs. So what we're encouraging and asking you to do is you'll see little packets, little empty plastic bags and little brown bags like this. And when you come over here and you look around, you say, oh, I think I'd like to try some cabbage. fine, you can take anything from here that you want, but don't take 50 cabbage because you probably won't plant 50 cabbage. So take 12 or 16 or 18 or 20, whatever you really think realistically that you'll plant. What I've learned over all these years is, and it took me years to learn this, don't plant too much. It's like, why do you need 20 tomato plants? You don't. You need 6 or 7 maybe. You know, better to have one good plant than 4 yucky plants.
Well, then you can give more than 10%.
You know, and then my daughter, she throws out, Ma, I planted 100 tomato seeds today. What? Are you crazy? You need 1. And then I try to explain to her about space. Now, we all like our space, right? We want our 3 feet of professional space or whatever. Well, these guys are the same way. And tomatoes, oh, when I see people planting and I've got 20 tomato plants in a thing, oh, look at all my tomatoes. You're not going to have a harvest. So there's no point in planting unless you're going to have a harvest. And over here we have some little sayings that we wrote, some little slogans from the seed world. And so take a minute to review those as well. It's kind of a little chuckle. You know, you got to have humor in your life, right? Without laughter, forget it. We might as well not even be around. So with that said, I want to show you this real quick. This is a corn husker. Sheller. Not husker. And I grew for the first time last year because of Jerry popcorn. So this is popcorn. And you can grow your own popcorn. And it's very simple. And then you just dry it and you get one of these little handy dandy shellers and take all of, and then you never have to buy popcorn again. Because that's what you get. And it's not that hard to do. I mean, everything is time consuming, let's face it, but it's really not hard. So we've got an unusual okra here. Not sure what type it is, but you know, there's so many different types of flowers and corn and vegetables. It's like endless, really. So with that said, there are a few flower seeds here for you to look at if you'd like to take like a couple sunflower seeds. Just think of it like this. You're not going to plant 1,000 sunflowers, right? You're probably going to plant 6 or whatever. So just keep that in mind when you're, taking your seeds from here. You're welcome to take what you want. Nothing that we buy or we really make a concerted effort to do all organic, non-GMO. And nothing is sourced from like multinational bio tech companies, for example. We want it all heirloom, open pollinated, that type of thing. So right now you should have your garlic in the ground, which is normally put in, I always say by Halloween. That's when my target date is. But you could plant it in November. I've even put them out in December. So anyways, I've got my garlic all in with all my bulbs for spring flowers, because you have to have flowers. Now, Jerry said to me at the end of this season, Deb, you really renewed my interest in flowers, because every week one of my offerings to God every week is to bring flowers from my garden. It's like you're going out there on a Friday before dusk, and you look in and you're like, wow, I got all this. I have to take and share. And then the joy of giving. And then at the end of the church service, and this is my little experience, being able to share that with people who don't have an opportunity to grow. It's just a joy, and that's what it's all about, sharing what you have and giving it in love. So with the garlic, I only want to mention a couple little things in terms of garlic is actually a seed, each one of those little cloves, right? And so the hard neck, just remember this, hard neck and soft neck. Anyone here grow garlic? All right, so everybody knows the difference between hard neck and soft neck, I'm assuming. And which one lasts longest?
Can you just define each?
I will.
Yeah.
I was questioning you to see if you knew. I was kind of hoping you knew. Anyways, and we are going to have follow-up workshops. So whatever we don't cover today, please, we have a sign-up sheet somewhere, yellow somewhere, and make sure, we get your email address, phone number, that kind of thing, so that we can contact you and share the information with your neighbors and your kids and your friends. Say, you know what? This church is really trying to help other people to learn more about how to sustain themselves in the future. It's not just about it's about the future. I'm not going to be here that long. Maybe I'll be alive when Jesus comes. I hope so. But if I'm not, the people that are behind me, and hopefully they've learned, that's what it's all about. We're giving, we're sharing, we're loving one another. And that's what it's all about. So anyways, I'm going to just break down the hard neck varieties. They're the ones that produce that scape, that circular, and that's before it goes to flower. So the garlic is about up to here, and then it starts to make this little scape, and then you cut the scape like right where the leaves meet, about an inch up or something like that, and then you can use those scapes to make like pesto and anything that you'd put garlic in. You can use those to saute, whatever. Okay, so you can use those, but that's the hard neck variety. The soft neck doesn't scape. Okay, the soft neck also stores longer because it has a tighter skin on the outside. You notice how some garlic is like the skin's almost falling off. Well, probably got banged around a lot. By the way, I'm going to tell you 8-second. Oh, I have to tell you this. This is an 8-second solution to peeling garlic. Everybody needs to know this. So you take 2 bowls, the same size, metal bowls, and put the garlic in the bottom, 8, 10, 20, whatever. Put the cover on the other bowl, shake it hard as you can, 8 seconds. Open it up, they're all peeled.
No.
Very simple.
I've been struggling all my
Right? Oh my God, that's all it took.
I'll do it tonight. My wife said, you want the garlic peeler, and I'm there with the knife.
Right? But you can also do, like a mason jar. So I put them in a mason jar and shake the living daylights out of it. So yeah, and so the soft neck stores longer because it has tighter skins. And then there's some varieties that really last longer. The one that lasts the longest are artichoke garlics, silver skin, and Creole. They store 8, 9, 10 months. But I'm going to do a class here on how to store food.
Again?
Yes.
The 3.
The 3 is silver skin. Thank you, dear. Silver skin, artichoke garlic, and porcelain. Oh, excuse me, Creole. Porcelain's the other one. Creole, they store the longest. And then porcelain is about 6 to 8 months. And the shortest ones are like the purple striped ones. You see them in the store. They don't last that long, 4 or 5 months, There's a few things you can do. We're going to do some classes on how to preserve. And I'm not talking about canning. I'm talking about fermentation, salt brining, lactobacillus, they call it, is the bacteria that's produced when it ferments, okay? And even in seed saving, very, very important. I used to just take my tomato seeds. I used to just take them and just throw them onto a napkin, right out of the tomato. Oh, I did that for years. I thought, oh, I'm doing a good job here. Look at all these. And then it'd be so hard to get off the napkin. You got to cut them and all this stuff. So the right way to do it is you take the tomato. We call it the guts. I'm a chef, right? So you take the guts out of the tomato, and each one of those little seeds has a placenta, and it has a little sac to protect it from the enemies, the pests that love to eat the tomatoes, right? So in order for them to germinate quicker in the spring or whatever, is when in the fall, you're harvesting your tomatoes, you got all these tomatoes, you got all them seeds, right? You take the seeds and you put them in a little bit of water in a jar, let them ferment on the counter for about 3 days, and you'll see like mold forming on the top, and you think, oh my goodness, what am I doing? I did something wrong, I'm sure. But all you do is you put it in a little strainer, rinse it off, the seeds will come down the bottom, get rid of all the chaff, and then the more you rinse it, the clearer they get, and they're all clean. And then when you put them on either a screen is really the ideal way to do it, or a plate or something that's not going to stick to. All right, and then once they dry, several days, you got to make sure they're really dry though, because if you put squash seeds or anything in a plastic bag like that, it's going to be mildewed in no time at all, because they withhold a lot of moisture inside the, in their side of the seed. So that's a little bit on garlic. Right now, you should be starting a few things, which I'm sure Jerry's going to talk to you about. I just want to mention too, we have a whole list of New England, I have a whole list of New England garlic gardeners. I have a separate list in my notebook if anybody's interested in, getting some local garlic. Unless you already know someone, you can pass that information on to us. So anyways, now is a good time to start like your seeds for, like say onions, right? You could start maybe February. I usually do February. I do, but he wants to go a little longer, like March. And that's okay. March is good too, But I know that our little friend Margie, she's already she's like chomping at the bit to get that garden going. So she's already like, last week, I'm already starting my onion seeds. But when we got that fever, we cannot hold it down, right? And you can imagine how God feels about us. He must be so excited when he sees us down here, excited about what he's given us, So I'm going to say, all of you saints that are sitting here, to be ready. When the time comes, we're coming into a time over the next, I don't know how many years, but it's going to be rough times, I think, coming up. And I think that's part of the reason why we're all interested in self-sustaining, is because, there's going to come a time of trouble on the earth, and if you're not prepared for it, you may be in trouble. So I'm saying that we, as a collective group, we have to steer each other in the right direction, and so the whole person has to be complete, which is financial in order, get out of debt, okay, as best as you can, work as hard as you can, and get out of debt, and be ready, not just financially, but spiritually, of course, and mentally, physically, and emotionally, because it's going to be tough. So be ready, all right? Requires a lot of prayer and preparation. But get your skills now, because we're going to be coming into a no-buy, no-sell period. Revelation prophecy tells us that. So we're going to get ready. All right, so next month we're going to do seed germination, right? And planning. So we'd start with our garden planning, which already, if you're thinking the way that I am, I've already tried to map out how I want my garden to be and not overcrowd it. And I find that if you do a diagram, it really helps you later on to stick to a plan, because once that season hits, you just want to plant everything and get everything, as much stuff in the ground as you can. So just be careful not to be too overly exuberant, And so the garden plan is coming up. Try to do a diagram. As I said, I find it very, very helpful. This is an example of my garlic and tulip bulbs. So you can see I just wrote in the types of garlic and what rows they were, and then I put tulips and ranunculus and different flowers and bulbs around the corner outside, so that when I'm sitting in my kitchen I can look out and I'll see flowers growing, And I think it's important to not just not just grow food for the sake of growing food, but to also grow things that are going to bring you a lot of joy. Because it's a lot of hard work and it can be very discouraging. So I'm just encouraging you to, as a fellow gardener, like when you get those low days, just walk away from it and then come back the next day and things look a lot different. But sometimes we can't do that either because the demand is there, right? So, but anyways, do a little diagram. It'll help keep you on track. And with the garlic, for those who haven't planted it, I go down about 3 inches, space 6 inches, and then after it's planted, mulch. So you definitely have to mulch the heck out of your, bulbs, at least 6 inches. I put 6 to 8 inches of leaves, whatever kind of mulch that you use or want or like, that's up to you. But you have to mulch it to protect it from the frost and the freezing. Yes?
I made an observation last year. I was never big on flower gardening.
Yeah.
But I noticed last year it seems like we need the flowers for
Pollinators.
For the pollinators.
Definitely.
And for the birds.
Yeah, absolutely.
To control the insects.
Yeah, definitely. And that's another whole class, and it really is like a really full class on pest control, on like the companion planting and the pollinators. Without the pollinators, we're not going to have any food. All right, so it's very important that we feed the bees and the birds, and the birds pollinate too. Yeah.
But the bees are also a helper in the garden because they also take away some of the pests that eat some of the,
That's right.
the vegetables that are planted. So
Right.
you also want flowers so that the bees will come around and they'll take some of the worms away and all the bugs and mites and all the things that are eating on your plants.
Oh, and this is Paul. Paul is a major gardener as well. I meant to introduce him earlier. I'm sorry that I didn't. But Paul knows a lot, and he has a big garden, and he could tell us, I'm sure, a lot of techniques for planting. And when we have our next upcoming event, I'm sure Paul will have an agenda for that, I hope at least. What was I going to say? Oh, about onions. I want to make sure that you know about Dixondale Farms. Jerry's the one who told me about these guys several years ago. So they have all your onions, shallots, leeks, all that stuff. You can get the sets already ready to go in the ground. That's what I usually do. But I found when I went through all my seeds, I have a lot of onion and different types of shallots and stuff. So I'm going to just try some from seed this year. I find if you buy the sets, it saves you a lot of time. Now, onions are typically 2 year, right?
No.
You wouldn't say? For me, it has been. Anyway, so I buy the sets because it gives me a jump start. So they come in little bunches of 50. Sometimes you can get them in 25. But this Dixondale Farms is excellent. And they send it to you like at the time, like every section or region in the United States will say has its own zone. And so we're in what, 7?
6.
7A, I was going to say, or 6.
No, we're actually 5.
We are?
We're 5.
I've always looked at 6.
Which is a colder zone. 5.
It's
Really? I've always
all
thought it
from
was
the Connecticut
6A.
Valley. You have to go from the Connecticut Valley
Oh, yeah,
in
yeah,
and out,
yeah.
and that's where you know where. I'm in 6.
Ah, okay. Well,
6 on the edges of Connecticut.
Okay, yeah, so that's kind of important to know, certain things like onions, they have long day, short day onions, so some things grow good in New England, some things don't, they grow better in Michigan or something, so, but yeah, take note of that, and then on the sheet here that we wrote out, this is a pretty comprehensive list, pretty comprehensive list of organic seed outlets, resources, okay? And it does have Dixondale down here with the onions, and these are some of the garlic resources. And again, you know, we only do organic because we don't want to eat poison, right?
Right.
So that's just a simple list. If anyone wants to take a picture of that, that could be very helpful. I want to mention this book. This is every year I try to add to my library, and this book here is very comprehensive. It's called Mini Farming, and it's for people like me who only has a quarter of an acre. You know, how to get like the best yield. All the time that we put into it, we want to get the best yield for our money. So this covers everything all the way down to canning, freezing, dehydrating. You know, it covers everything from raising and pruning and raising poultry and all that stuff. So it's kind of like a homesteading book, very helpful. I also recommend people getting a thermometer to see what the temperature of the ground is before you start planting stuff, and then you end up you know, wasting your time. Let's see. The only other thing that I wanted to mention is
To know what vegetables you want to grow that are that you like, so that you know how to buy the seeds that you want.
yeah, that's a really good point that he makes, because for years I used to grow all this stuff, and then I'm like, what was I thinking? Why am I growing all this? I don't even, nobody in my family eats eggplant. I mean, I like eggplant, don't get me wrong. But if you got 6 eggplants out there and they each bear 100 eggplant or 50, you got a lot of eggplant. You better plan on figuring out how you're going to use it and advance it. Make a lot of church suppers, okay? But the thing is like he said, and I learned that the hard way, you know, I plant what I eat now. And I focus myself personally more on the things that I know I use a lot of. So I use a lot of onions. So I plant 5 or 6 different kinds of onions, 50 or 60 of each or whatever. I mean, I'm small scale compared to Jerry. He'd probably plant 1,000 of them or 500 or something. But for me, I use a lot of onion and garlic. Allium is what the onion family is called. So all those shallots and leeks and you know, all that stuff is in the allium family. Great pest control too, because carrots, for example, they get this little maggot. It's what's that maggot called? Do you know, Jerry? Well, anyways, the carrot maggot. Okay, and if you plant the onions near, you know, row of onions, row of carrots, another row of carrots, row of onions, carrots, onions, carrots, the bugs won't bother. They will not bother because they don't like the smell of the onions, but they love those carrots. Okay.
And also teach it that you don't plant the same in-ground in the same air in the same ground.
Rotation.
Rotation is very wise, because if you plant in the same ground, the same in-ground, the worm may still be there.
Yeah, and the bugs, like
yeah.
the squash bugs, they might, because what they do is they go underground. You know, at the end of the season, they drop their little like eggs or whatever underground, and then in the spring, you can actually be out there tilling, and you can see those larvae out there. And if you don't pick them out, they're good. And you want to make sure you don't just throw them. You want to make sure you don't stamp them, because if they're pregnant, they're going to be having all them babies right there on the ground. So you take them. I keep a little bucket. I keep a bucket of salt, actually. Huh?
Thou shalt not kill.
Anyways, I didn't hear that. I know someone must have a good retort for that. No? Chili.
Pestilence, it's okay.
All right, so where was I?
You're killing them with
It was
salt.
salt.
Oh, yeah, the bucket of salt. So every good gardener keeps a salt shaker in his little pack. Oh, we could talk a lot about the little tools and packs and all that stuff. But yeah, the salt shaker acts not only for the slugs, because you know those slugs, they're awful. You know, you can get them drunk and they won't bother your garden after that. So what you do is you take, I know, I don't drink, okay, I'm not into it. But they love yeast is what slugs love. They love the smell of yeast. So what you do is you take a beer, well, you don't take a beer, but like you buy a beer, okay, and you open it, let it go flat. You didn't have to be sparkly fizzy or any of that stuff. You put it in those, let me fashion the rig for you in advance. You take 2 aluminum disposable pie pans. On the one that's gonna go on the top is the cover. You cut a little hole. Now there's I make a lot of other types of little pest control stuff, but this is the one for slugs that I like the best. And you can just add brewer's yeast or nutritional yeast with water because they like the yeast. But the beer works the best. So you make the little cover, put the little hole so it can crawl in, but it can't crawl back out because it gets dry. So it dies in there. So anyways, and then I take I staple it around, and I take a little space in a hole. You can use a little tiny, pie plate. Doesn't have to be the bigger one. But anyways, you put the little hole there, and with the lip of the plate at ground level. So they come crawling towards it, and they crawl in, and they never come out. I mean, you don't have to use the aluminum pie plate. You can use a plastic tub from the margarine, from the, whatever. Anything that works for you. We throw away those plastic things all the time. The, things from like lettuces and all that stuff. Those things, I'm telling you, if you saw some of the stuff I've done to germinate seeds, you'd be like, think I was crazy or something. But honestly, you can reuse all that stuff. Even like eggshell crates. We started seeds in those before, and that's great for little kids. They love doing that. So, it's like a constant, push towards what you're going to do next year. So now is the time of year when we start thinking about how busy we're going to be coming up and what we need to do. So the last thing I'm going to show you is this is how I keep my seeds. And you should really think about having what's called a seed vault. So that means having seeds ready, because we don't really know what's going to happen. There's been a lot of crazy stuff going on in the last few years, and the admonition I'm getting from Bob is to be ready. Okay? Now this is my seed catalog for at home. I took a picture album. You can take a trading card album and put your seeds in it. So it's not totally categorized, but as you see, I can just flip through here looking for eggplant or zucchini or kale, or whatever I'm trying to show you here. But that's an idea of how to keep your seeds nice and neat and clean and easy to find. And if you're really smart, which I don't claim to be the smart, but,
How long are the seeds good for?
They could be good for up to several years, 5 years, or I've used seeds that are like 10 years old and they've been fine. The germination rate is better when it's like 1 or 2 years.
Yes.
But I have used seeds, I can't tell you if they're stored right, as long as they're stored right. That doesn't mean put them in the freezer. You know how everybody says, put the seeds in the freezer, put them in the refrigerator. Yeah, that's okay, but there's moisture and humidity in the freezer and refrigerator. So the best bet is to put them in a really cold, not humid basement that has like a dirt floor and blah, blah, blah. So in a really dry, like closet that's cold near a window, somewhere that's cold and dry, you can put it in a 5-gallon bucket. I used to always keep mine in like a square thing, but now I do this because this works. I mean, it's so easy to just look at. And then you can, online, you can buy these. I brought to show you some of my seed vault. This one is 32 vegetables. These are all organic. This one's 15 herbs. This one here is just 7 different types of basil. This is a survival garden. If you had to, you could plant this and you could live off what's in this little package. and your family. This one is garden greens, 8 organic greens, more salad greens, and these are all watermelon fruits. So, with all that said, make sure that you get yourself some seed catalogs. You can go online, look up any of that list. Just type them an email. They will send you a catalog or, whatever you're looking for, seeds or whatever. This is my personal favorite. I order a lot from this company, Baker's Creek, and I order a lot from this company, High Mowing Farms seeds. And not that it's not about I'm just saying this is what I personally use. This is Shumway. All right, so Nature Work, that's local in Northford, and Gilberti's. So there's a lot of resources. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
So the GMO seeds, right? If when you plant them and they produce yield, the yield that they produce, are they still GMO?
Yeah, of course. And they don't reproduce.
Okay.
They do.
Well, but they don't reproduce.
Healthy crop.
Yeah, that's what I should say. They don't produce, in my opinion.
Keep them separate and then don't let them crossbreed.
That's it. Yeah, when you plant them, you got to be really careful. Even, with the whole cross-pollination thing, even with tomatoes. If you've got 8 tomatoes in a row, if they're all 8 different ones, they can cross-pollinate.
We'll get into that in a moment.
Yeah, he's going to get into that.
You may
Peppers,
even
sweet peppers.
plant a tomato and grow a fish.
Yeah, yeah, salmon.
Because the GMO modification
Right?
is taken from some fish stem cells,
Yeah.
and the best ones are the unclean fish.
Yeah, isn't that something? Wow. Any other questions before we open the floor for Jerry Travers? Yes?
I tried growing kale at my house, and I just like a 2x4 bed, and something was eating my kale, and I could never see anything eating my kale.
All right. First of all, any of the brassicas are, kale is in the brassica family, right? Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cabbage, broccoli, all that stuff, those are all brassicas, right? What I found with them is I learned finally to buy floating row cover. I mentioned this to Margin yesterday. It's a little extra work, but when I put it, I had cabbage this year that did not have one hole in the leaf. Oh wait, I did see one. Pardon me. There was one hole, and the whole cabbage that big. And I'll show you the picture. I was like so happy because I never had luck with cabbage or any of the brassicas because of that reason. Something was always eating them. So that is probably that white cabbage moth. So what it does is it comes when you're not looking, of course. All right. Now you could just sit out there, with a butterfly net. I used to pay my granddaughter. When you see them, I'll give you 25 cents. Do you know, in 1 month, the girl made like $25.
Nice.
What? I'm not kidding you. Every time you turn around, Grandma, I got 8 today. Oh, I got 6 this morning, 20 this afternoon. Oh my, you're sending me to the poor farm here. But you know what? I didn't have any problems. But they are bad, and they come out at night at dusk. They're out all day long, but they like to get underneath the leaf and lay them little eggs. And there's a few things you can do. You can go out every day and scout it out, which is time consuming. Take a piece of tape, duct tape is what I use. Put it on your hand backwards so the sticky part is out. So I wrap it around and I go out and I have one of those black light flashlights which will detect tomato hornworm. You know the tomato hornworm?
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they will decimate your whole plant like overnight almost. So you get a black light. I'll bring it to the next one. I'll show you. Get a black light and you go out, when it's dark, they show up neon green. So you go out with a little light and you can see them. You pick them up, take a little bucket, salt water or whatever, and as you drop them in, and then the next night you go, and they will be gone in no time. They only, they will come around if they can get away with it, but they will decimate your whole plant in no time. So that's one way of getting rid of it. There's a lot of other ways, just soapy water.
Yes.
But make sure you use Castile or Bonner's, biodegradable soap. Don't ever put anything in your garden that's not, that is chemical. Let's put it that way.
So
Oh.
like for squashes, I've seen the flying,
Stem
beetles
bugs.
and everything that eat and
Yes,
everything. But for my kale, I've never seen anything around that.
You could have-
You won't see them. They're gonna make sure you don't see them. But honest to God, that's what they're doing. When you're not looking, they're out there laying their eggs and making the babies there, and then they live off your plant. So when they turn into what's it called, a nymph, goes from the larva to the nymph, right?
Yes.
All right. So when it turns into that, and there's like a million of them little buggers. Oh, it's too late then. You gotta go out and get the seeds, the eggs off the bottom. They lay underneath the.
I've never seen anything out of them.
Okay, I think we can,
Okay.
She might have
we can
started.
discuss those questions individually later, but we have a limited amount of time, so we'll go into saving seed. Now, I wanted to ask this question, why save your seed? What do you think? We've been given a few reasons here, but this is the point that I'm trying to get at here. We know we may not be able to purchase seed, yes.
One reason why, personally, I save seeds is because I know what I'm growing
That's right.
and I'm planting.
Well, this is the way God designed us to save seed. The purpose of it is that in the genetics of the seed is an environmental readout. And that seed takes a readout on the soil. It takes a readout on the climate, and it takes a readout on the microbial populations that are there. And it begins to adjust itself to those things, to the soil, mineral content, and the alkalinity, acidity, to the climate, cold or warm or dry or wet, and to the microbe populations that are there that are going to be feeding them. So this is why you save your own seed, because it will produce better and better year after year and be more climatically adapted to problems that may exist, especially with the weather modification we have going on these days. This is not winter here in New England right now.
No.
And I'm waiting for winter. It hasn't come yet. It is too warm. I am very curious to what Europe is getting, because when we get it like this, they get real bad cold weather. But anyway, we want to be able to adapt to the climate that we're growing in. Now, this is the best book for saving seed. Everyone needs a copy of this. No exceptions. You need a copy of this book. Okay?
What is it called?
This is called Seed to Seed by Suzanne Ashworth. Okay? And she got tired of not being able to find simple enough information on saving seed. So she put this book together, and it's excellent. It makes it easier. It is a complex subject, but it can be done easily. So this is what we're going to try to focus on right now. There's about a dozen families, and I'm going to go over 8 of them. The other ones are sort of minor. For instance, in the Malvaceae family here, this is your okra. That's the only edible thing that you know of in that family. There's some other types of weeds and things, but some families don't have many plants that we eat in it. Now, you take this family, okay, the Cucurbitaceae, you have thousands and thousands and thousands of varieties in this family. So we're going to have to look at these things here, the major ones here. Now, people have asked a question about hybrids. Is a hybrid good or is a hybrid bad? The answer is a hybrid is good if it's a good hybrid, and a hybrid is bad if it's not for good reasons. Okay? I grow a hybrid that I love, and I always try to grow it every year, and it's called Sun Sugar. And it's because it has the highest nutritional content of any tomato I know. It was hybridized for the right reasons. Now, if you hybridize for shippability, cosmetic appeal, uniformity in harvesting, uniformity in shape, you know what gets left behind? Nutritional content. That's not considered. Only the commercial aspects are considered. And this is what you have in the supermarkets, in the stores. So when you are saving your seed, you need to, for instance, we'll take butternut squash. If you're going to save the seed from butternut squash, if the squash does not taste sweet, roast them and eat them. But if it's sweet, save the seed. Now, I mean, of the butternut squash that you have grown. I don't mean in the store, because there could be a cross, it could be, you don't know what you're getting. But when you grow your own, save it from the sweetest. Your year after year, your squash will get sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. Okay?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah, I wanted to mention too, with the garlic, for example, when you're gonna plant it, save the bigger bulbs.
Yes.
Don't put the little dinky ones out, because the bigger, the more plump, the more juicy, the more sweet, the better your product's gonna be, like you said.
Same thing with potatoes. When you're going to save, some people say, well, just plant these smaller sized potatoes. No, you plant them from the largest you have. You just cut them so you have a couple eyes on each. When it comes to potatoes, we don't plant by seed. Although they just sold some in the catalog this year by seed, and I planted them and I got potatoes. I was surprised.
I have another thing I want to mention with potatoes. Last year I grew my potatoes in cardboard boxes. I don't know if you came to see them. But anyways, I had about 20 cardboard boxes that I saved from the winter from Amazon, blah, 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 blah. And I filled them with all this stuff, and I can tell anyone who's interested in doing it, it worked out really well. I got a lot of potatoes. I covered them with the floating row cover that I mentioned before. Like I put like a 6-foot one, like you can get little ones, right? And then you can get big ones, like a hoop post kind of thing, right? So I put my own little hoop post thing together over my potatoes that were in the cardboard boxes. And what that did was it protected them against the Colorado potato beetle. And I don't know if Jerry ever had problems with the beetles and stuff at his place, but I did a few years in a row, and it really affected my harvest. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to mention was about the potatoes. You can grow them in bags or boxes.
And I'll just,
buckets.
Or 5-gallon buckets, yeah.
and I'll just add to about the Colorado potato beetle. I get them sometimes, and you know what I use to get rid of them?
What?
I water.
Soap or water?
No, I
soap.
just water.
Just water.
They're under stress. The beetle gets called in when they're under stress.
Yep.
You know, why do insects have antennas?
Yeah,
Think on that.
Yeah.
Why do they have antennas? Remember the old TVs
Right.
with the antennas on them?
Yeah.
They have antennas because God designed them
Yeah.
to take a readout on the infrared.
Uh-huh.
Most of the light coming in is infrared, not in the visual range that we see. And that infrared bounces off. And when it bounces off the plant, that antenna picks it up and can tell its nutritional content. If it's
Isn't that
high
amazing?
in nutrition, you will not eat it.
Won't
If
touch
it's
it.
low in nutrition, it will eat it. That's what the antennas are for. So when my potatoes get under stress because they haven't had enough water, when the sunlight bounces off it, potato beetles pick it up, they come home and right in. I put the water on heavy because they've laid their eggs now and the little ones are starting to climb up. I put the water on heavy, water them up good the way they should be. They just all fall off.
Yeah.
They're now
That's right.
nutritious, and then they cannot survive eating nutritious plants because they were only designed to eat the poor quality ones. This is God's design. So, for instance, if you attempt to plant a hybrid like Sun Sugar, I have played with that. when you plant the seed from a sun sugar, which is a hybrid, you will not get the same quality you got the year before.
Yeah.
Many times these sun sugars fell on the ground, produced a seed, the plant grew, I saw it as a weed, I left it for the fun of it, and it will produce it looks like a sun sugar, okay, approximately same size, and it's yellow. Does not have the nutritional content. The sugar content is very low. That's called, a hybrid is called an F1 generation. That one that fell on the ground and grew up is an F2. But if you take the F2, the seed from the F2, which is almost always junk, according to the breeders, and you grow it again, and you get the F3 generation, you can start to get good ones. So I finally did that once, and I put in 4 plants of the F3 generation. One looked like a little tiny marble-like sun sugar. One was a normal size sun sugar, didn't taste good. One was the size of a golf ball, and one of them was a little smaller than a sun sugar, but it was bronze in color. But it had 11 brick. A 1 brick higher than I've ever gotten on a sun sugar. But the problem is, you plant the seeds from that one, it's not settled. And you get many different other kinds. You don't get that one anymore. So when you are saving the seed of a variety, it has been settled already for you. So in other words, that word settled means when you plant it year after year, you're going to get the same thing. Okay? Because if it's a new one, it's just going to start shifting, and you have to do the work to keep selecting it for what you want. Now, I was curious when I did this, because the sun sugar normally cracks easily. You get a heavy rain and it cracks.
Right.
That's a problem with the sun sugar. So I noticed some of on the 4th generation, didn't crack in heavy rains. It had crack resistance. So I started saving them, the crack resistant ones, thinking that was pretty cool. But it began to shift so much. I was into different colors. I was into different sizes. Finally, after about the F6 generation, I said, forget it. I don't want to play anymore. Okay. So I just went back to the variety. So when we save seed for a particular variety, it has already been settled, and you're going to get that variety again. Although I have noticed sometimes when I bought many different kinds of tomatoes to see how they would do, some of them really weren't settled yet, because I was noticing variations in it. But
Interesting.
now I'm telling you this about the settling of that variety. That variety is going to produce you that variety, because many of these in saving seeds will cross with something else. But when they cross, even though it's not the variety you specifically wanted, it tastes good and you can eat it.
You can eat it.
You don't think you have to throw it out. Okay?
Yeah.
It tastes good and you can eat it. So
Jerry.
when you're saving seed, don't worry about it. For instance, if you save a summer squash seed and it's supposed to be yellow, and you get this greenish thing or a whitish thing, and instead of it being long like a squash, it's round or something, no problem. Eat it when it's tender, just like a summer squash, and it'll taste good.
Yeah.
There's a lot that it can cross with, but it will still taste good. So I want that to be settled in your mind. Don't be throwing it out because it isn't looking like what you started with. Everything is based upon taste. If it tastes good, eat it.
Eat it.
Regardless of what it looks like.
Yeah, so Jerry touched on the refractometer. And what that is a little gizmo that you put some of the juice on this little glass, and it measures how sweet the tomato is, for example. And that's called the BRIX, B-R-I-X level. And
Yeah.
Jerry, if you want to mention anything else about that.
Yeah, that's one way of testing quality. I'm going to begin, since we're short on time here, on the first family here, and that family is the Amaryllidaceae. Now, to just let you know that aceae on the end is just Greek or Latin for the family. Okay, so it's actually the amaryllis family. Now, you're all familiar with an amaryllis flower. At Christmas time, you buy a little container, it's got this big bulb in it, and it shoots up a stalk. That's an amaryllis flower. The onion is supposedly in that family. When I learned families 40 years ago, it was in the Liliaceae family. So don't pay too much attention to all of this so-called accuracy, because they'll just change it on you after a while. So anyways, so in that family, you have the onion, the garlic, the chives, the leeks, the shallots. Okay? And when you, this is some information now that you need this book for, so you can determine. This is fly and bee are the primary pollinators. When you read that, that means whatever your neighbor is growing, whatever somebody else is growing maybe a mile away, that can cross with what you're growing to give you something different. Okay, whenever you read that. Some of them are self-pollinated. They pollinate themselves. Others, although they can be bee-pollinated, block pollination of an insect and only pollinate themselves. Those are the easy ones to save seed from. So we're going to be looking at them like that. So they say here, if you really got to have your shallot and you don't want it oniony or whatever, you're going to have to put a cage over it, an insect cage over it, or a bag over the top and close it of the stalk. Or you may get something your neighbor is growing. Well, not very many, Deb, not very many people grow onion seed. We almost all buy the starts already.
Yeah.
But if you're saving your own seed and somebody else is saving their own seed, the insects can cross it and give you something different. But regardless of it being half shallot and half onion, eat it. It tastes good.
It's
Okay?
probably better.
So, and they say, and they'll tell you things like, if you're going to keep saving over and over, save at least 10 flower heads. So there's a limit. If you just save one plant, you diminish genetic diversity. But you have to save a certain number of plants if you want to maintain your genetic diversity. And that diversity is its capability to adapt to the conditions around you. Remember, that plant is adapting. All season long, it's taking, every day, it's taking an environmental readout on the climate throughout the season. It's taking an environmental readout on the availability of nutrients naturally in the soil. And it's taking an environmental readout on the microbes that are living on its leaf and that are in the soil, because it uses them in partnership to fertilize itself. Yeah.
If you find that if you do have a pollinating problem with bees, you need to know in the neighborhood who's planting what and how far you are from people who don't use
Genetically modified. Yeah.
And if they do, you may want to plant flowers in between you and them, and also to
Okay, I'll address that there.
okay.
My daughter lives in Nebraska, the east side, corn and soybeans, miles, hundreds of miles. And so what did you think she has all around her home in the country? All around, corn and soybeans. But she wants to grow corn. She wants to grow sweet corn. I told her, this is what you've got to do. They're going to keep growing a particular variety of corn because it has been bred for that soil and for that climate. Find out its pollination. When does it tassel and when does the pollen start to fly? And then you know, you've got to put in a corn that starts early and finishes pollination before that starts pollinating.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Or you want to plant a late variety that after it's finished pollinating, or a GMO pollen, that it begins to tassel and pollinate. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're going to have to, if you're around it. For me, I just did what Paul said. I knew one neighbor about, maybe about a mile and a half as the crow flies. And you got to think as the crow flies,
Right.
not by roads. As the
That's
crow
right.
flies, because the bees, they make a beeline.
They make a
And they'll be gathering some of that pollen, and they weren't putting in GMO, so I was okay. So,
I
Yeah.
just want to mention about the onions and the garlic and the shallots thing, because being a professional chef, I use so much of this kind of stuff, right? And the shallots, I have to tell you, are so easy to grow, and you never tasted anything so sweet and like they're nothing like what you get in the grocery store. They're like bursting the minute you cut that, and you know that it's like really flavorful because it almost knock you over. Start frying and everything else. So I have like 5 different kinds of shallots growing, 5 or 6 kinds of onions. They're simple, very easy, and the pests don't really like them that much. So just don't overwater. I should
Now,
say.
this is some of the complexity of that pollination of that family. She suggests here that if you're going to do that, and you have them in cages, so that you have to hand pollinate yourself because you're not letting the insects do it, you get a camel's hair brush, and between 9 a.m. and noon, you do the pollination, and you do it daily for a while.
Little
See,
paper,
it can get pretty tough sometimes
not easy.
to get these things, just the way you want here, and so you can get some seed. So,
Yeah.
Margin saved seed last year from the onions that she had grown, and she let the insects pollinate them, and if she gets germination,
I did.
Oh, you did? They're already coming?
Good.
Okay, well, we're gonna get to see what happened.
Yeah.
We're gonna
I
get to
got
see
them,
what if those insects found any others, or if these are the only ones they found.
I have
because-
3 different kinds there, so they probably mixed
Oh,
it.
you
I
probably, okay.
didn't know.
That should be interesting. It's interesting to see what's gonna happen, what kind of mix you get. But it will be an onion.
It'll
It'll
be
And it
an
will
onion.
taste like an onion.
Right?
Eat it.
I'll
Okay.
eat it.
Okay, so,
Yeah, good qualities to it.
Yeah, might be actually.
now the next family is the Brassica family, as Debbie had mentioned. This is it's the Brassica family. It's got a lot in it. Horseradish is in it, mustards are in it, rutabaga is in it, Siberian kale, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, kale, collards, kohlrabi, turnips, broccoli rabe, Chinese cabbage, arugula, radish, and watercress. Now there's more in the book, but there's not. I just named the ones that we could maybe want to grow. Now, in this book, they'll tell you about that family. The radishes only cross with radishes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not too bad. Okay, so just grow one at a time. And then you have the rapa species, and that is turnips, broccoli rabe, and Chinese cabbage. So that's all you got to know. If you're growing turnips, seed for turnips, don't try growing Chinese cabbage to seed at the same time, or broccoli rabe to seed. Now, broccoli rabe makes a flower head to eat.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to save seed from your turnips that spring, and you've got broccoli rabe in, you make sure you pick it before it produces flowers. You're supposed to pick it before it produces flowers, but don't just say, well, I've eaten enough broccoli rabe, and then let it flower, because it's going to cross with your turnips.
Yeah.
Okay? And then you get a nice, thick, stalked, and small-rooted turnip, because that'll be the cross. And then we have rutabaga, Siberian kale, and rape. We call that here in America canola. Okay? And these three will cross. So that's what you have. Then we have Brassica oleracea. That is a big thing. Broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, collards, kale, kohlrabi. All of these will cross. And so one of the ways to do it is only plant one, because most people do not try to save the seed. So you plant what you want to eat, you rip everything out, and then you only save that one for the next year. Now, this is a biennial. Seed comes the second year. So if you like those broccoli, you want to save the seed in the broccoli, dump a bunch of leaves over the broccoli for the winter so it won't get killed, pull the leaves off in the spring, and it will shoot up flower stalks. I did that for the kale I wanted to save seed of, so I sort of left a row and covered it with leaves, pulled the leaves off, and they produce pretty big stalks with. I can't go into the different details of the stalks. You need this book.
Yeah.
I'll say this over and over again. You need this book. You'll see the picture of what the seeds look like. And you just save them and dry them. And, I get piles and piles of the kale seed that way. And you can do a different one each year. Yes, Paul?
One of the other things with that family is if you let it go over the winter and you let it pop up in the spring, it is sweeter to eat the vegetable than if you did it in the fall time.
And if you've got more flowers than you want to save seed from, say you had a whole row of kale and you just covered it all and it all came back, you eat those flower stalks that come out. They're delicious, and as Paul says, they're even sweeter because they go over winter than the cold. They're great to eat. I don't know what name you can call them. You call them Rob, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
People may call them.
Can you elaborate a little more on the biennial seed things?
Okay, the
like
word
celery,
bi means
parsley. What else? Celery maybe is a and a parsley.
Yes, yes. Biennial, bicycle, tricycle, three, bi is two. So in other words, it grows in 2 years. Annual is one. Biannual is two. Now, this is what happens. In nature, if the climate is right and it's not killed in winter, these plants will have overwintered, shoot up a flower stalk in the late spring, summer, mature, drop seed, and begin to grow for next year. In the fall, they're stopped by winter. In the spring, they start over again, and they produce another flower stalk. And it drops seed, and it grows the vegetative stage in the fall. It's like what I was telling the pastor yesterday about the wheat in Israel. It's all called winter wheat. They plant it in the fall. It grows the vegetative part in the fall. Then the next spring, when it begins to grow with the latter rains, the former rains in the fall, get it to grow, but the latter rains in a Mediterranean climate cause the flower to come, which would be the wheat head or the flower head for seed that you're saving. So that's what a biennial is. And a number of things this book will tell you whether it behaves biennially or annually. Now, some things are biennial that I save the seed from, and that's like Swiss chard. And the Swiss chard doesn't have many in that family. Swiss chard and beets will cross with each other. Swiss chard is just nothing more than a beet that was selected for the greenery, and a beet is nothing more than a Swiss chard that was selected for the root. So those two will cross with each other, but sometimes when you plant the seed that you have grown from the Swiss chard the next year, some of them, instead of just growing vegetatively until fall stops them, which of course you would cover and then save for flower stalk next year, some of them will put a flower stalk up in the summer. Rip them out. Rip them out. You don't want them. You don't want them because when you're growing Swiss chard, you put it in and you want it to grow all year.
Yeah.
All the way up to the fall, okay? And it'll take frost too. So you rip those guys out. You don't want them in your breeding population. So when you find off characteristics, we haven't got to legumes yet, but when you have peas, for instance, I always save my pea seed. It's very easy for a bee to fly from somebody else's garden where they're growing shell peas, and I only grow these snap peas. In other words, I eat the pod. Okay, so I want a pod that's not tough. Okay, well that bee can take the pollen from a shell pea and bring it to yours when you're saving seed, and then you plant your seed, and you notice some of your peas are really tough to chew on. And you can recognize it visually. You can recognize there's something a little different. Just snip that plant off. Okay. Soon as it produces those peas, snip it off. Let it die. Don't pull it off. Just leave it there because they're all intertwined. And you've got to manage your population. You've got to manage the genetics of your population yourself. So these are some of the things you have to pay attention. So for the Oleracea, the broccoli, and all those guys that all will cross, you got to put cages over them if you want to do it. You can grow two at once. We have cages on one day, cages on the other day, and let the insects pollinate it. Anyways, all in the book. It will tell you how to do that. Or you just do one at a time. Let's see here. Then we have the we did the beets and the Swiss chard. They will cross with each other. Now, that also in that family, but will not cross with beets and Swiss chard, is spinach. But you have to know spinach. Spinach has male plants and female plants. Just about everything else has on its flower both the male and female parts. Spinach, you have separate plants. So you gotta leave a patch of spinach. So you have enough males and enough females that are going to give you the seed there. And the others don't matter. There's odd ones in here. We have the composite. Now the composite is like a sunflower head, a dandelion head. It's a composite of many flowers. And the only thing in that is endive and escarole. They won't cross with the lettuces, but they'll cross with each other. So you do endive one time, escarole at another if you want your own seed. Now the lettuce, there are thousands and thousands of varieties, and they will cross all with each other, and they all taste good. I pay no attention to what they are. I mean, Johnny's seed catalog may have 50 to 100 different varieties of lettuce. Yeah, that's nice. You know, one's a little ruffled, a little different, one's a different color, you know, they all taste good. That's the way I look at it. But I have to admit, you know, Boston Bib lettuce, that's a sweeter lettuce than some of the other ones. So, you know, if you want just that Boston Bib and you don't want it crossed with any other lettuces, you either got to cage that thing, or just rip everything else out and just leave that one so there's nothing else flowering. And usually your neighbor's not growing seed. So once we do more of it, there's going to be more and more people growing seed. So then we got the big family, the cucurbitae, okay? And we often think of them as the squashes. But in this family here, you've got melons, gourds, squashes, pumpkins. And these are insect pollinated. So those insects are going to go all over the place, pollinate this. Now, this is how you can break these down. Watermelons will only cross with watermelons. So you grow one at a time. Melons, you've got muskmelons, cantaloupe, honeydew, cassava, and Armenian cucumber. Grow one at a time. This one here, mochata, is butternut and cushaw. Who grows cushaw? So you're okay. Just save the seed.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's going to cross with it. You're okay. But I have saved the seed of ones that look like this, and I have got ones with a stem this long, with a real long slant stem, and then this. I have gotten them that look scalloped, round and scalloped. I have gotten other shapes that are, so the shapes can vary. Just record them for sweetness. If they're sweet, save the seed. Who cares what the shape is, okay? And then we have Maxima. That is like your Hubbard squashes, your buttercup squash, banana, turban, and they can be easily told from the other squashes by the corky-like stem. All that information is in here, all to help you differentiate. Okay, so, and then there's Peppo. Peppo is acorn, zucchini, crookneck, scallop squash, all your summer squashes, spaghetti squash, small striped and warded gourds, Jack B. Littles, all those little pumpkins, as well as all the kinds of pumpkins. They're all Peppleville, all cross. But like I said, if you're gonna eat it as a tender thing, eat it, it's good. Okay, so now we have the legume family. The legumes are, we basically think peas and beans, okay? And they come in pods. Now, we have many different kinds. You get your beans, your peas. And peas will cross with peas, but they won't cross with all the others in that family. And then you get peanuts. The peanuts will cross with peanuts. So if you want to have Virginia peanuts, Spanish peanuts, you got to grow one at a time so that they won't cross. And then you have pigeon peas, gandules, probably different kinds. You just grow one at a time. Garbanzos, one at a time. Soybeans, all kinds of soybeans, one at a time. Lentils, one at a time. Jicama is actually a legume, one at a time. Lima beans, one at a time. And you're okay. So it's not too bad. And the good thing about this family here is they pollinate themselves. The design of the flower is such that it pollinates itself. In other words, the stigma is underneath and the pollen is on top. The pollen things are on top and gravity just falls right on. But it doesn't mean that a bee can't come in and carry something else in. And that's why sometimes the peas are changed. But normally they just pollinate themselves. So these are pretty easy. You've got, and then all your common beans, your wax beans, green beans, purple beans, that you eat for the bean, they'll all cross with each other. So save the seed of one at a time. And you've got your fava beans, one at a time. Azukis, yard long beans, these all are separate. They don't cross with the others, even though they're beans. All is in the book. And right at the back of the book, you look up what you want to do, and it'll tell you what page to go to and what you're going to have to look for. Is it wind pollinated? Is it insect pollinated? Does it pollinate itself? And you'll find out just how to do it. And it's not that complex, but when you have a book like this with the information on what to look for. Yes.
What if you like the two kinds of one plant?
One year and one the next.
But what if you plant like on the extreme, far away from each other, on the extreme of your garden?
She will give you the distances. Sometimes if they're wind pollinated, the pollen may be heavy. You just drop. And you can plant 50 feet away and you're okay. Other things may be very light pollen, can drift a long way, okay? And so she will tell you those things. So there's distances that you can use that are fairly safe. And she gives you commercial distances. In other words, you can't afford to have it cross. But you can actually do a lot of these a lot closer. And you get pretty good. Yes.
Really quick. Philip Byron, you all may know him. He was growing his nice corn from an organic place, and he got this bed thing growing with all kind of colors and grains on it. He bought from another brand and another brand. And he says, is it the soil here? Went and consulted with experts. And they said, where do you live? They checked. Yukon corn farm was all around him. It didn't matter what he planted. He was crossing.
Everything was coming in. Yeah.
And they are all GMO. You know.
Yeah,
4 miles away.
when I lived in Wisconsin, I detasseled corn. And what they do is they plant 4 rows of the female flowering corn they want, and then a 5th row is the male they want to cross and hybridize with it. So we had to go down the rows of the females and reach inside and pull the tassels before they had opened and snap them off and throw them out.
Wow.
And then they come over the field with a helicopter after all the tassels are pulled off the female, so you don't get any pollen from that female. You only get the pollen from the male and cross it. And even the males, we had to rogue them. In other words, I had to run down the rows, and I would take 3 rows on either side and just look at them to see if there were a difference in size. If they weren't the right size, my job was to run over there and just kick them at the bottom, break them off and kill them. And this is how they commercially were making the corn seed that they sold. And then they'll even make seed over winter in Hawaii. In Hawaii, when I lived there, they had the fields all set up, and they can grow 2 crops before spring to put the seed in for the corn that they're growing here. So they can develop them. So it's quite a business, seed production here. Now we have the Solanae seed, the tomato family, and the tomato family is like your peppers, okay? Now, sweet peppers and chili peppers, these will all cross, okay? So I saw some cayenne pepper there and I said, yeah, I really like to get some hot pepper. I have to buy it. And then I thought, no, I always save my seed for my sweet peppers. I don't want cayenne growing there because I'm going to get some pretty hot sweet peppers, and I won't know, because all you do is the change is only in the seed, and you can't see it, so you put it in the ground, it looks like a normal seed, and then all of a sudden you're getting hot sweet peppers. So I said, forget it, I'll just have to maybe go to Debbie, who doesn't save the seed for them, and say, Deb,
I have about a dozen different hot peppers.
Yeah.
They always look at me funny.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, Brother Gary, and the chili peppers are really good
Jamaican.
because they're mean.
Okay, got it. And now Tabasco.
I want to mention about peppers though. They make now a jalapeno that does not have heat.
That's correct.
Yeah,
It has a flavor.
It has the flavor of the jalapeno, but no heat.
It's
What
sweet.
did they
I have
pepper
seeds
with
of it.
It has a low, it's under the.
Yeah, it's
8%.
under the Scoville
Yes.
unit.
of the-
Whatever, but it's
Now, the thing you want to know,
Mine.
when something is sold to you and they give you seed and it's going to produce seedless fruit, that fruit has the inability to take in manganese. Okay, seed cannot reproduce itself without the element manganese. So what happens is that there's a problem within it, it's sick, and it can't take in manganese. So
So that's why we shouldn't
eat things the way God designed it.
Yes.
We shouldn't be making selections for sick.
Well, now they're trying to make us so that we don't produce seed too.
Yeah, right.
So
Okay.
keep that in mind.
Yeah. Now the tomatoes generally don't cross.
Yeah.
The only ones that cross are the ones that have the potato leaf. Are you familiar with potato leaf tomatoes? Okay.
Those are usually ground plants.
The leaf sort of looks like a potato.
Yeah, bush
Right.
Okay. The pollen and the stigma are far enough apart that an insect can get in there and pollinate. Whereas the others, they're almost locked in the flower, and pollination occurs, and the insects can't even get in there to interfere with self-pollination. And this book will tell you what self-pollinates itself, what can be crossed with insects, what can't. and the probability, so it makes it easy. Eggplants are self-pollinating. You don't have to worry about them crossing. Self-pollinating, so you get a particular variety, but you could always get some bee. They just gonna work his way. I want the pollen off this. So you get occasional crosses, and that's why I said, did I mention about my Brandywine? I had a Brandywine tomato. I've been saving my Brandywine seed because it's the best tasting big tomato there is. I've been saving it now for, I don't know, this was in the early 90s, so that's a while ago.
Long time.
30 years or something like that. Anyways, I'm saving the seed from it, and being a potato leaf, it had the capacity to be cross-pollinated, and I was growing some Valencia orange tomatoes, and some bee got in there, crossed it with my Brandywine, and the Brandywine normally has a green shoulder. So, when you cut the top of the tomato off, you cut the green shoulder off, Well, the green shoulder in the cross was orange. So it was all edible. And it was a nice, good tasting tomato. So I still call it, and if you see any napkins there with BW on it, that stands for Brandywine. I call it Brandywine, but I actually know it's a cross with the orange, but it's an excellent tomato. So I just keep the seed, keep growing it. You don't have to stay with the varieties. If it's good, keep it.
What about that Japanese black tomato that you gave me seeds for?
The black, there are many types of black ones,
Yeah.
yes, and they're pretty good tomatoes. I
Yeah.
like them.
Yeah,
But
they're-
some of them
that's
may
excellent.
not produce very well. Okay, we're running out of time, so I'm gonna get down to the last family here. And that's the umbelliferae. Now, the umbelliferae is called that because the flower stalk is an umbel, and we all know umbrella, right? In other words, all the little pokey things and that hold the umbrella skin on it. Well, that's what the seed heads are like, all the little uprights. Okay, so the seed head grows up and it has an umbel, and there are a number of things in that family. There's the celery, the dill, the cilantro, the carrot, parsnip, parsley, fennel, and chervil. These are all in the umbelliferae. Your celeries are going to cross with celery. Your dills are going to cross with dill, cilantro with cilantro, carrots with carrots, parsnips with parsnips, parsley with parsley, fennel with fennel, and chervil with chervil. But they won't cross amongst themselves, even though they're in the same family. And they're generally insect pollinated, so again, this calls for a little cage over the top of it. Okay. Yeah, well, we should stop because we said we'd go to 12 and others may have other appointments, so thank you very much.
Yes.
And help yourself.
Seed swapping.
Still a lot of
seed
seeds,
swapping.
take home.
Before we break up, I just wanted to say one last thing. Is let's try to be like seeds. And let's not look at the dirt that's being thrown on us, okay, as your enemy, but as ground to grow. So we may not instantly reap what we sow today, and it doesn't work that way, but we're not like instant grits. We're like grits that you want to cook for a while, 20, 30 minutes, right? So be patient, and I want everyone to have a blessed day, and feel free to call on any, either of us or any of us for information, okay? Thank you for coming.
So what they say is you take a bag.
Yeah, I
You
think.
take a bag.
More people,
Yeah.
they see this.
One of these bags. You take some out of
What
the
about
bag
going to
and
see
put it
that?
in here. Well, here, let me show. So you take this bag.
I know.
Let me film it. Right, and you take a couple seeds, you put it in the bag, and then you label it. Right. Okay.
But it is here. We don't have it.
Angel is a leader.
Okay, so I'll send you the flyer.
I'm filming how it's done. People watching.
Bigger scale, like in all the other churches. I know
That's the reason I was asking.
How many could be? Well, it depends on how big your property is.
So I will email you.
You want to label something so I can show you?
Yeah, the problem is having a list of all communication with people at each church.
Like an email.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Because then we can all share information easily. It's not like, oh,
I have it from.
Okay.
Do we have like a church directory for every church? Like the
Now you can
emails
tell your
and
church to just go to podcast.com, Rockville Collins, Seventh-day Adventist Church, and they can get all of his recordings. Okay? That's good. Yeah,
It
put
would
that
be
on.
nice to
So
do
that
one.
Sister Queen,
Would you be,
can you share how the seed swapping is done?
Want me to help them?
No, just share how it's done.
I can get you the pavilion, definition and everything.
Usually through the Roberta.
You divide it in two parts.
You're not.
Yeah, I think we need to do that. Morning and afternoon.
And flowers.
Now that's in like July.
That's in the middle of summer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be like a Sunday.
Yeah, better. This is just the first stage.
The next stage is all the planning.
Planning, germination.
Then I'll just do like.
Let me tell you how many meetings do you think we should could keep like this? Total information. Each meeting for hours. But then there could be 2 Sundays. 1, 2
Yeah.
Sundays.
Organic
Morning and afternoon.
places where you can buy your organic, non-GMO seeds.
So just put it in Rockville SA Church.
Yeah.
Did you need me?
No, I
I do, that's what I do for work.
Okay, Sister Queenie.
Irvin is flipping around.
Did you want this?
These are all from my garden. There's red curry, butternut. All those are all from my garden.
Did you want the sign-in sheet, or can I take a picture? I can take a picture.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
End it. Is there anything you want to say to end it?
I say once a time.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Remember, I'm like.
Sorry.
The spiritual message I wanted to give.
Yeah, that's right.
The theme for my song today was in times like these, we need a savior. And we also need to save our seeds, so we need a savior too. But anyway, I just really want to say that, like, if we don't sow the seed, we're not going to have a harvest. So it's important to me to try to pass on all this wonderful information to others in an effort to, so they can pass it on to their kids and family and friends. And there's so many parallels in our spiritual life and in our physical life with the whole farming, gardening, seed, saving, germinating, and all that harvest stuff. So I think it's really important that all of us get together and share what we have, whether it's information or seeds, or plants, whatever, flowers, whatever, and really apply ourselves and be examples of how Christ works. So I think it's really important. The sowing, the sharing, the simple truths of Christ is all part of it. And so with that said, you may go into your hands as you work and as you prepare for the future. And here's our
And this is the pastor
pastor right
of
here.
Rockville Talon
If
SDA
you
Church.
missed the seminar today, come February 12th. And also, do not miss it if this seminar happens again next year. Okay, it was outstanding. God
And
bless.
this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're gonna have like 4 more comprehensive workshops covering everything from the seeds all the way to harvest and then how to preserve. So stay tuned.